Okay, welcome to Man Cave Meals and part 2 of our all-grain homebrewing series, where we're going to have a look at the ingredients that are used to make beer. As you can see here, this is our first ingredient, and one of the main ingredients in beer is water. There are a lot of world beers that benefit from different chemistries of water found in different parts of the world, but for our brew, we are just going to use plain tap water, and I've had great luck with that. I've never done any real water profiling, but my beer always turns out good. So water is one of the 4 main ingredients used to make beer. The next ingredient is malted barley. I have an example here of some uncrushed malted barley grains, and we use different types of malted barley. The barley is where the beer gets a lot of its flavor, a lot of its color, and a lot of its character is derived from the barley and different types of barley that you use. This is a base malt that I'm showing in the picture. It's just a plain 2-row malted barley that we use as a base grain in these beers. There are different types of this that have been kilned or roasted basically to darker colors, and combinations of different types of malted barley are what produce the colors and flavor characteristics of the beers. I'm using several different types of malted barley in the brew that we're getting ready to do, and this is just one of them. This is a light colored beer that we're going to be making, so it does not have any of the dark malts. Some of the malts that you'll see, like chocolate malt for instance, and roasted barley, are almost black, and they contribute a dark coffee-like color to your beer. So the malted barley is ingredient number 2 of the 4. It's used to make beer. The third ingredient in beer is hops. Hops are as important as the barley choices that go into beer. The hops are used for 2 different purposes in the beer. The first purpose is a bittering element. The roasted barley is where we get all of our sugars and sweetness that goes into the beer, and what keeps beer from tasting like Kool-Aid basically is hops. Hops go into the boil process at different points in the boil. Hops that we put in early in the boil contribute bitterness to the beer. They don't contribute much flavor. They just counteract the sweetness of the sugars from all the malted barley. Hop additions that go into the beer later in the process are aromatic hops and flavor hops. They do contribute specific flavors and specific aromas to the beer. And in the picture here you see I have these are pelletized hops. Hops come in several different formats, and I just choose to use the pellet hops because they're quite easy to use and they're easy to store for longer periods of time. Hops come in leaf format, plug format, and as you see here, pellet format. What you see in my jar here is 1 ounce of Centennial hops, and these hops will be used for the bittering hop and some of the flavor hops in the beer that we're going to brew. We'll be using another variety of hop called Cascade hops for flavor and aroma in this beer. The 4th ingredient, and these are equally important, a 4th ingredient in beer is yeast. Yeast is the catalyst that turns our sugar from all the malted barley into alcohol. And there are lots of world beers that get their flavor profiles from yeast. This particular beer that we're making today is not one of them, but there are a lot of different strains of yeast used to make beer, and this is just basically a standard yeast that we're going to be using today. This is called Nottingham. It's a dry yeast, and it ferments very cleanly. And so there we have it. We have the 4 ingredients. And how these ingredients interact, like I said before, we're going to go back to the water for a moment. What's going to happen is we are going to crush our barley, which means we're not going to pulverize it into a powder. We're basically just going to break it and break the hulls off of it and break it up a little bit. You'll see that when we actually grind this. And then we're going to soak that barley in hot water. And the water is going to be at a specific temperature to achieve a specific task for this beer that we're not going to get into the technical details at the moment. Let me let my cat traverse here. Okay. The purpose of soaking the malted barley in the hot water is because this malted barley right now is full of starch. There's no sugar there, but the mashing process of soaking this malted barley in hot water is going to convert those starches into sugars, and that's where we'll get our sugary wort that we'll boil and make the beer out of. And that's all in the mash process that's going to be in the next segment of this video. And after we've done the mash and collected all of our sugary sweet wort from the mash process, we're going to boil that. That's where we'll add the hops. And then after we've cooled that boil down, that's when we'll add the yeast. And what the yeast does is the yeast will rehydrate and become active. These are microorganisms that are alive. They will consume the sugars, or consume a majority of the sugars that came from the malted barley, and the byproduct of that consumption is alcohol and carbon dioxide. So the fermentation process, which I will show you in a later video as well, you'll be able to see the carbon dioxide escaping from the fermenter as these yeasts go to work. So that's our ingredients overview, and be sure to come back for the next segment of our video where we're actually going to do the mash. We're going to create the wort that we're going to boil, and we're going to have a good brew day. So stay with us. I hope you come back and see the next set. Until next time.